Mr. President, your impressions of Davos 2011?
Well, Davos always provides an opportunity for exchange of ideas, and every time it has taken place under different kinds of environment and settings and things happening in different parts of the world, different from what was happening the previous year. So it's good. It's a good atmosphere. It's a vibrant community here in Davos, discussing issues as people understand them and trying to look for a way forward.
Obviously, Davos this year is talking about inclusive growth and making sure that as we push to improve global economies, the poor are not forgotten. Rwanda is named one of the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world. How are you doing it?
Well, we focus on, first of all, correct policies, and then indeed we make sure that every Rwandan is part of that. We start with what we have in place. For example, we've had huge potential in agriculture which was not realized and which really serves to improve the lives of many people who depend on agriculture. So we have invested heavily in rural areas to improve agriculture and make sure that every Rwandan has not only food security but also can have income from the activities. And then we have seen services industries or financial services grow from month to another month.
You have addressed a session on the knowledge-based economy, and this speaks to, I think, a passion of yours, which is to make sure that technology is an integral part of development. Some people call Rwanda the Singapore of Africa. Tell us about that model of growth.
The model of growth is really built on people again. It's how you invest in people, both in health and education, but mainly to enable them have skills on which they can depend and make them the people competitive globally, not just within the country or region, but globally. And that's what we have sought to do, because that has no limit. You may, as I said, agriculture, for example, we've done much to make sure that we realize its full potential. We are still on the way to doing that, to achieving that. But it has a limit. When you're talking of Rwanda and agriculture, its size of land and all possibilities, you suddenly hit a limit. But with knowledge, with the skills, with innovation, there is no limit. The sky is the limit. And this is what we aspire to achieve by investing in our people, to have knowledge, to have education, and be able to simply exploit this very expansive area of technology and skills.
Now, although Rwanda is always celebrated for introducing very progressive reforms and having a good environment in which to do business, the country is struggling to attract foreign direct investment. Why is that?
In fact, in the recent years, we've seen foreign direct investment coming. Even this last year, around 2010, and running into this 2011, we have realized over 350 million US dollars. That's not a very small thing for the size of our economy. But of course, at the same time, there are other areas that are competing for this kind of foreign and direct investment. In fact, we have probably had more than would have been expected, given the size of our country and the size of our economy, because of a number of things we have done to make the country attractive. Not only for people to invest in Rwanda, but also to invest best in Rwanda or through Rwanda. And we are making very good progress in the energy sector, in ICT, in banking sector, in mining and agro-processing and different kinds
How's the East African community helping your case, for instance? I mean, there's talk of maybe a single currency. There's talk of getting the Rwandese stock exchange to be a little more prolific.
Yes, in fact, for example, recently we had the first IPO of one of our companies, that is Bralirwa, which is really one of the companies under Heineken. And the IPO was oversubscribed, about 8 times what was expected. And we are having other companies on the way in the same direction. So we And in the whole region, we are having, for example, have realized customs union. We have already made headways with the common market. Now people are discussing the monetary union and with the possibility of eventually achieving even a political federation. But these first two I have mentioned are already on track, and they are certainly bringing together the many millions in terms of business activities and trade and different kinds of transactions that maximize on this size of the population.
And a final question to you, Mr. President. Some of the delegates and leaders we've spoken to on CNBC Africa are quite frustrated about the fact that there's perception of risks in Africa, and then there's the reality. Infrastructure issues, poverty issues, governance issues. The one criticism leveled against you is that as the Rwandan economy grows exponentially, it happens in an environment where politically the situation seems a lot more repressive. How do you respond to that?
I respond to that by saying that that is sincerely not true. Even if you look at the whole history of Rwanda, from a very tragic history, certainly where we almost had nothing, whether to speak of politically, socially, or economically, and we have had to build the whole country from scratch. And there is no way we could be making this economic progress and development, which evidently has buy-in of the population, and yet at the same time we are a government that is repressive. These two would not coexist like this. You would certainly at some point see that there is lack of buy-in, yet we wouldn't be making this progress without people being involved. If you look at all the processes we've been involved in, whether in the area of decentralization, when it comes to electing leaders at different levels in our country, and how responsive the population are in choosing their own leaders freely and expressing themselves and their choices freely, you can't say that this is an environment. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It is not fact-based. It is a hearsay that started even with that history, the tragic history. And people have always, and it is the same people repeating the same story. There is a storyline that has been created for Rwanda by some people. It doesn't matter what Rwanda achieves or what progress they make, they will stick to that storyline. And I think this is what we are struggling with, but the people of Rwanda are happy, they are making progress, everybody's moving forward. You just have to ask these Rwandans whether they really like what they have or whether they don't.
We have to leave it there. The views of President Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, addressing broad issues around his investment model for Rwanda, one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, also a country that's continually performing well on the World Bank's Doing Business ranking, creating an environment that's conducive for investment. On issues of political risk, the president has addressed those issues.